Hey everyone, this is Steve Bishop from ProgrammingMadeEasy.com, and today I've got a bit of a different topic than I would typically cover on this channel. So most of you guys who come to this channel know me as a Visual Basic for Applications developer, Access, and maybe my DBA stuff, so databases, or maybe you know me for my C# work, right? Maybe you learned the basics from me, maybe you did some .NET Core stuff or MVC, and that's great, right? That's all that back-end business logic, databases stuff. I love that stuff. That's really kind of my bread and butter. I like to work with the complex and try to figure out how to tease the problems out of it. But some of you may not know, I'm also a front-end developer. I do the full stack. I do JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So I know those front-end languages, and I also know Angular and React. I've even dabbled a little bit with Vue. So what I'd like to talk about today in this video is actually, if you are in the process of trying to determine which one of those two frameworks to work with, Angular or React, I'd like to help you with trying to decide which one to either learn or which one to implement in your next application. So I'm going to kind of tackle this from a more 10,000 foot level. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details or the technical details of things. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the parts that help make React work and how Angular work. But really, I just kind of want to give you an overview of each one and kind of tell you how to make this decision. So some of you have probably already done a boatload of investigation. You've done a bunch of reading online. You probably know all the technical ins and outs of React, and you know all the technical ins and outs of Angular. Maybe some of you are. I don't know. Most people probably are not at this point. But the bottom line is the technical details, I think, are less important than what I'm going to talk about in this video. The 10,000 foot level view to me has more to do with you as the developer. Okay, you might have a very good argument why React is better because it's faster, or Angular is better because it has better tooling. You might be able to make all those discussions and come up with great arguments, and you could spend hours around the water cooler with your fellow developers and say, I think React is better because of X, Y, Z. And you could do that all day, but I think the bottom line is it really does come down to the personal preference of the developer. So if you are a JavaScript developer, if you have been in JavaScript for all of your life, you do Node.js with Express to do your backend APIs. You love MongoDB, for example, and that whole NoSQL stuff and schemaless. If that's your bag, then I think React is really just going to be the proper fit for you. Okay, React is much more of kind of this. I don't mean to say this in a negative way. It's really not negative. It's kind of a one-trick pony. Okay, you've got components in React, and that's really all it is, a React component after component. And there's some other things, don't get me wrong. It's not like that's all there is in React, but that's kind of the core of what makes up a React application, are the components. And you use components, and you can break out your code into several different pieces, into all these different other components, but it's really just components, 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 components. Now, the great thing about having that one thing, a component, is that you really only have one thing to learn, right? But you have lots of different ways to use that one thing that you have to learn. So for a JavaScript developer, I like this because if you really think about it, JavaScript is a functional-based language, right? I wouldn't say it's a functional language. It's really not. It's got objects in it. But the primary first-class citizen of JavaScript is a function, right? That's kind of what you're thinking about. You're passing information through, you're having functions do things, and that's one of the beauties of JavaScript, is because you have all of these different functions happening and you build all these different functions, you have a lot of asynchronicity to it. That's one of the key reasons why JavaScript is so good and so adept at handling asynchronous calls and AJAX, is because functions don't really worry about state too much, right? They don't have much state to deal with. So because of that, you probably already have this mentality of, I use functions for everything. Well, in React, you use components for everything. And components can actually be functions, right? They're just that you can actually define a component that is a function, takes in these things called props and You can create state inside of one of these things. Anyway, a component, though, is kind of like this one single thing that you reuse in multiple different ways. Great. When it comes to Angular, it's much different. It's a very different ecosystem. So you have separate responsibilities. You have different things for different responsibilities. You have modules. You have components in Angular too, but they have a little different responsibility. They have more specific responsibility than they do in React. And you have like HTML templates with, you know, data binding and stuff like that. So Angular has like more strictly separate things, different pieces of the Angular library for different purposes. And you work with those different things, those different tools to manage those different problems. And it's not necessarily that Angular is better than React or React is better than Angular here. This is the whole point, right? It's that separate concept, fundamental difference of one thing that does it all or several different things with different responsibilities. And there's a bit more to this too. So with Angular, right, we've got these different responsibilities. And if you think about it, if you are an object-oriented programmer, right, you're already accustomed to you know, having polymorphism and inheritance and all that good stuff that comes with object-oriented languages and static typing and interfaces and generics and all that stuff that comes with object-oriented or statically typed languages. Well, Angular is going to be just a great fit for you. It's going to make total sense because one of the things that Angular does is it employs a special type of JavaScript called TypeScript. And TypeScript is really just kind of this, this reinterpreted. It's like take JavaScript, add an extra layer to it that allows you to write more object-oriented and type-safe ways, and then that gets what we call transpiled into JavaScript. So you write your code in this way, and it gets converted into normal JavaScript. But the thing about that is you get to now deal with the concepts in a much more object-oriented way. You get to essentially write your JavaScript in a way that fits more of the paradigm that you might already understand, right? You've got, like I said, interfaces and generics and type safety and decorators. They call them decorators in TypeScript, but they're kind of more like annotations. We're used to seeing annotations in our other languages. They're just like little things that you can put on your methods or on your classes or on your properties to kind of alter or modify their behavior kind of after the fact. Anyway, so not to get too much into the technical details, but because you get TypeScript, you get this type safety, you get these interfaces, you get, you know, much more of that polymorphic, object-oriented, solid principles kind of way of dealing with the code that you're building in JavaScript. If you come from the C# language or the Java language or one of those kind of similar languages with a lot more static typing, like it's going to make much more sense to go from Angular, to go to Angular, because you're going to have all of those same concepts built in. One really great thing, one thing I love about Angular is the dependency injection. And I started investigating. I did a little bit of a kind of a side, like, I wonder if we can do dependency injection in React. And you can, but there was an argument that in React, there's no need to do dependency injection. And that's kind of right, because it's a totally different paradigm. It's a different way of doing the work in React than it is in Angular. But with Angular, it makes total sense to have dependency injection because sometimes you need to bring in the service. You've got these different layers. You've got a service layer you need to bring in. You know, you've got different tools that you want to bring in through dependency injection so that you can use them inside of your components. That's like, it's totally a different way to think about how to build something. And because of that, there's always going to be this split. There's always going to be this divide between developers. Some are going to prefer React, some are going to prefer Angular, and it mostly has to do with which one of those two paradigms makes the most sense to them. Does it make sense to really break things out and have separate different tools to handle specific responsibilities? Or does it make sense on the React side to have like one thing that pretty much does it all? You just have to use it in a variety of different ways to make it all happen. And once you understand that, then the decision becomes very easy, right? Then you can just pretty much say, well, I already know type-safe languages. I already know C#, I already know, like .NET Framework, or I already know Spring MVC or Spring Boot or something like that. Then it's going to be like Angular is a nice, easy, gentle fit, and you're wondering why anybody would like React at all. But then on the other side, if you're purely a JavaScript developer, you work with MongoDB or you work with Node.js and Express, then everything is much more functions upon functions upon functions. Then having components upon components upon components is perfectly reasonable and makes total sense to continue to do. Why would you do something so complex to have to know which tool for which circumstance, right? And it just doesn't make any sense to do that. Why not just use one thing over and over again, but just use it in different capacities? So that's basically my take on it. That's my 10,000 foot level. If you're a purely JavaScript developer, it makes total sense to stick with React. If you are one of these other language developers, C#, Java, etc., type safety, then Angular is going to feel much, much more home for you. So hopefully that dispels some of the that helps you clarify, maybe help to make a decision about what you're going to use in your next project, or what is the next language you're going to learn, or I should say next framework you're going to learn. And I hope that this has really been helpful to you. If you have any questions about maybe some of the differences between these two to get a little bit more of a in-depth understanding about it, please feel free to drop me a comment in the comment section below this video. Also, if you have another idea for a video, you want me to talk about something else, drop that in the comment section as well. And as long as I've got time for it and it's a really good one, I will definitely cover it. So hopefully you guys did like this video. If you did, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and like and subscribe and all that great stuff. So hopefully you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.